Hi, all you BC Wrestle Pod nerds out there, and welcome to another episode of the Takedown Troop, your weekly TNA review show here on the BC Wrestle Pod. I am one of the two hosts here, Mikey, and of course, joined with me, as always, is my other half, the better half, if you will, of the Takedown Troop, and Mr. Papa Oso himself. Will, it's nice to see you again. We had some double fun on Wednesday, and now we're holding down the Friday slots. But I have questions, Will. I have so many questions.
Okay, so before we get into it, this one followed Genesis, right?
Yeah, because we talked about Genesis last week, and we even did a quick recap of last week's show too, which was really stellar.
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
And then we get into this one, and I'm like, the tapings are rearing its ugly head, because I'm like, I'm pretty sure not all of this followed the same order than what we saw, because they do a whole bunch of batches and then they pick and choose. They pick some weird segments.
They really did. It was, I left with more questions than answers.
We took a sharp turn after last week's live show. I'm like,
we really did. Yeah.
I mean, I'm excited that we're not doing like a 2-week build to a pay-per-view, but the next pay-per-view for TNA as of right now isn't until March with Sacrifice. So I'm interested to see how we're going to carry through the whole entirety of February leading into that pay-per-view.
You know what's so funny though about this is there were parts of it that felt like a pay-per-view build-up.
Right.
Like truly, I felt like there were moments where I'm like, is there a pay-per-view coming up soon? Because this feels very much like we want this big thing for a pay-per-view and we're going to rush it because we want it so bad. So,
yeah. Alrighty, so TNA, we're gonna dive into it. Love you still. We're gonna just dive into it. So of course, if you like what you see here, follow us all over the social medias. I don't want to waste too much of everybody's time, but links in the description. You can find us pretty much anywhere and everywhere except for Twitter. And we also have some really fun merchandise too. So buy yourself something nice. Treat yourself once in a while. You deserve it. Alrighty, let's get into it, because we kick things off this week with TNA, where we have our former TNA World Champion, oh my gosh, Nick Nemeth, coming out to the ring. So I was confused by this promo a little bit and what happens afterwards. So let me just lay everything down. So Nick Nemeth comes out. He's basically his promos. He states that, there's no excuse in the book. Joe Hendry was the better man at Genesis. I was just like, facts. I was like, great. Love that part. We're off to a strong start. And before he could get anywhere, he gets interrupted by his brother, Ryan Nemeth. So Ryan Nemeth is starting to get on my nerves a little bit, but I feel like that's supposed to be the reaction that's supposed to be getting. Even if that is how it's supposed to go, he's getting on my nerves. His character, not him as the actual person.
No.
Ryan comes out, he interrupts Nick, and he tells Nick that, he was robbed at Genesis. What happened shouldn't have happened. Blah, yada, yada, yada. And then, of course, we get interrupted by Will's favorite tag team on the planet of AJ Francis and Casey Navarro of First Class. So basically, we get a verbal back and forth, between First Class and the Nemeth brothers. More so, though, Ryan was kind of taking the charge a little bit, and Nick was like, bro, what are you doing? Stopping all that nonsense. Which essentially sets up our main event of this episode, where Ryan and Nick Nemeth will be taking on AJ and Casey in a tag team match. So this is where the first couple of questions come up. Number one, I actually liked how this promo, when it was just Nick talking, I was just like, okay, we're getting somewhere. We might get a rematch down the line at Sacrifice or something cool. Then Ryan came out and interrupted, and I was like, okay. I mean, I don't think we're going to do the brothers at odds with each other. That's fine. And then First Class came out, and I'm like, now I'm even more confused. So, and then not to bury the lead here, but Ryan and Nick now have an NXT Tag Team Championship match against Fraxium next week, which I'm all here for. But now I'm like, I'm even more confused. So I guess we're going to put Nick, the former TNA World Champion, into a tag team program? What? Well, this was question 1, 2, and 3 and all in just one single segment. So first, how do we feel about the entirety of the segment? And just give me your thoughts.
At first, I agree with you. At first, I was like, okay, Nick's coming out. He's being the better man. He's saying, you know what? I lost because Joe was better than me. And I was like, good for you, my man. Good for you. And I was like, okay, cool. And I thought what we were going to get was this is where I'm going. I'm working on this thing. This is my next project, going either trying to go back for the championship or he's got his eyes set on something else. That's what I was thinking was happening. And then his brother comes out, who I agree is starting to get very annoying. And you mentioned something and it piqued my interest because it's something I was thinking about earlier. And there's something that we see later on about brothers opposing each other. I think we're going to see a split sooner than later, which is cool. And I think that'd be really neat. And so I was like, okay, Ryan, good God, shut up. I was just like, when I was at Genesis and you were talking, I was like, shut up. When Santino like kicked him out of the venue, we were all like, hallelujah. And then he bought a ticket and came and sat down ringside. And then I was just like, can we just get rid of this dude, please? And then I'm just like, and then it's like, and I can see what they're doing. I know what they're doing. I know it is. And if it's not what they're doing, then they're wrong. I'm not. But they're playing him to drive a wedge between the two of them. I think that there's going to be a civil war between these two brothers at some point down the road. You can see it happening. Nick's the good brother, Ryan's the mischievous one. It's Thor and Loki. It truly is. And then the thing happens, and it was just like, where is this episode taking us? I don't think I want to get on that bus because I don't know what the heck's going on. And now I'm like, I was the same way. I was like, are we turning Nick into a tag team player? Which that doesn't sit well in my mouth there when I say Nick, the Nemeth brothers as a tag team. So I don't know. I was confused by this whole thing. I really, like I said, I really was enjoying Nick's promo. And honestly and truly, what I thought was going to happen is I thought Joe Hendry was going to walk out and like, they were going to like shake hands and do stuff and which I would have loved, but I know they had, Joe off doing other things, but it would have been so cool. I mean, but then AJ Francis just messes everything up. We're starting an episode with people talking.
I love it. Oh my goodness. I'm hoping this leads to Nick kind of being the catalyst for him to kind of turn more heel by turning on Ryan, which I'd be more okay with. But yeah, I'm gonna give TNA a chance and some time to see how this goes. But yeah, this was weird. Okay, so Tessa, I got words for you. Don't do this to Miss Ariana. I love me some Ariana Grace. But after that whole opening segment, sorry, I'm looking at the comics. The professor is in the building. There has been an exposition epidemic across all promotions lately. Too much talky, more meat slappy.
Yes. Jesus H. Criminy. Yes. We had this conversation on NXT on Wednesday.
Yeah.
About how there's way too much lip flapping and not enough hand slapping. I'm just like, driving me nuts. And because Mikey knows about me, I hate when they talk. I hate when the talking happens. Drives me crazy.
Right. So we go from one talking segment to another because backstage we have Mackenzie Mitchell, Gia. We have Gia. Mackenzie and Gia are holding it down, but we have Gia Miller interviewing Ariana Grace, talking about this new partnership between TNA. And Tessa then calls out Ariana for being a Nepo baby, essentially, because everything was handed to her. Because lest we forget, Ariana Grace and Santino Marella are real life father and daughter. So I'm just like, oh, Tessa. Oh. That's what we're doing. Okay. And so Ariana, she's like, I'm going to leave. And Gia's like, well, dang, Tessa, what you doing? And then she's like, that means for you too. Because Tessa tells Ariana and also tells Gia to leave. She has the microphone in hand. And then we hear Tessa is just like giving me we're going to go back to the old ways of things. I'm like, girl, I'm still on the fence of how I feel about where we're going with Tessa's character. Yes, she's a heel, but this was weird.
I have a couple of observations from this. One, the overall feeling that you had, it's like, don't be messing with my Ariana. I'm like, hey, now back off. The other thing was it just me, or did Tessa feel like in a weird place when she was speaking? Like, almost like it
She
felt like she was reading off the cue cards or
she felt so
something.
stiff in her delivery and, like
Yeah.
so this is just a brain conspiracy theory, so bear with me. I'm wondering because of the last time that Tessa was in here in TNA, it didn't end so well for her. I'm wondering if her consciously trying to do better and be better is kind of getting in the way of her being this heel character. And I know she can be, but because of how things went last time, I wonder if she's subconsciously like getting in her own way of not
Oh,
wanting to be defined as that mean girl or that girl with things like that. But even if that's not the case, we have seen Tessa both in the past and in other promotions within the last year or so be able to kind of naturally deliver this promo. It felt so wooden, and I was
it
so
did.
caught off guard. I was like, look, putting my personal feelings aside of what Tessa and her past include, I know what she's capable of. Hell, she's the child of another wrestling person and Tony Blanchard, but
Right. Well,
yeah, this was tough to watch, and
it was.
I felt the crazy part is I feel like Ariana did the best in this whole promo, and
Yeah.
she's not even in TNA. This is going to be tough because if Tessa is being utilized to build up the women's division and to be, the face on the heel side of things, I'm really hoping this was just a fluke of the evening because I don't want to see this wooden delivery from Tessa because then it's not going to help her.
Right. And then Gia Miller was all stiff too. Like it was at the minute Ariana left, it's like they both kind of went, what do we do now? Oh, hey, Tessa. Because I was like, oh, girl, look at him making you look like that.
Right. We're trying to make Tessa this super heel, but the delivery was not it for this backstage segment. And this isn't the first time I'm going to bring this up because we're going to bring it up a little bit later. I feel like we could have shaved like 5 to 10 seconds. Like as soon as Ariana left, we could have like held Gia and Tessa there for a little bit and we could have cut it right there. We didn't need everything that happened afterwards. And I feel like it would have been more effective. We're going to talk about it a little bit later because that one was so egregious too when we get to Mr. Leon Slater and the whole gang.
Oh my
Yeah. So we're gonna save that. To sum up our thoughts. I'm hoping that this was just an
Me
off
too.
night for
Yeah.
Tessa because we need her to get it into gear for where
Mhm.
we're trying to take her. After this, we finally get into our first match of the evening, which essentially was a little bit more than a squash match, but we get the TNA, in-ring debut, not wrestling debut, of Miss Cora Jade.
But didn't we have a backstage segment with her and Zaya?
So I'm gonna kind of wrap that in because I'm like
Okay,
putting it
cool.
all together
Okay,
because
cool. Because that was
so
also
because
weird.
prior to this match too, we get a backstage segment that happened earlier in the day where Cora Jade is walking through the hallway and she is greeted by Zaya Brookside, who is welcoming Cora to TNA. Of course, Zaya is still in her cowboy era, which I love, which is fantastic. But Cora immediately just cuts to the short of it all. It's like, I'm not here for you. I'm here for Masha, and obviously you're not her, so you kind of need to get out of my way. So basically being a mean girl about it. And Zaya's like, hold the phone. I know my dad, Mr. Brookside, has trained you, so why you copping an attitude, girl? And Cora's just like, again, I'm here for Masha, not you, so go away. So then we almost get a fight backstage. Security and two other folks come in to try to break it up, which then leads into Cora making her entrance and having this match against Hyann, who we've seen a couple of times on other episodes of TNA as like the local talent, indie talent to come in. This was a little more than a squash match. Cora Jade hits the Jaded for the win. I really like her finisher. And then she proceeds to attack Hyann after the match, which then prompts Miss Zaya Brookside to come out for the save. And Zaya does the one thing that no babyface should ever do: turn your back on a heel. Because then Cora gets back into the ring. She blindsides Zaya, attacks her, which then prompts Masha Slamovich, whom I am loving this leopard bikini thing we got going on here. I'm like, why does this work for you so much? But I digress. Which Masha then comes out for the save. So we're continuing to build the story between Cora and Masha, Would not be surprised if we get a title match in a couple of weeks or even at Sacrifice, depending on how long we want to build. This was the first plus for me of the evening. I like the match and I like the storytelling we got going on in the Knockouts division right now. So, Will, what did you think of Cora's in-ring debut on TNA and everything that proceeded to follow the match with, Zaya and Masha?
I just realized I was muted. I liked it, and I love that they use local talent in some of this stuff, but I think I would have liked to have seen her fight someone that's already on the roster.
I would have loved to see Cora like maybe a Savannah Evans, a Tasha Steeles, maybe. Yeah, that would have been great.
I mean, don't get me wrong. The local talent was great. I mean, come on, give them a chance. It's like, come on now. Her in-ring work was great. I did like her. I like her a lot. I like that she's this sort of, she's that what is it called? Oh my God. You called her a mean girl, but it's like Heather. She's like part of Heather's.
The Heather.
Yes. She's got that attitude like, well, yeah, that's great. That's who you are.
He's very preppy, mean girl coded like Heather's, and I love it.
Yeah. So, but I enjoyed it.
I had to remind myself because I was like, dang, Cora's playing double duty. We just saw her on NXT. I'm like, oh, wait, no, I got to remember these were taped beforehand. So we're watching things that happened in the past. But even still, I love Cora. I'm so happy for her. I mean, we both of us enjoy her in NXT. Yep. And I actually feel like she fits perfectly with the women in the Knockouts division here in TNA. So I'm very interested to see how long it takes before we get Masha versus Cora for the title, for Masha's title, and whether that would happen on a TNA, taping or a pay-per-view or on NXT. I feel that we might have some sort of interaction because the Royal Rumble is tomorrow evening. I would not be surprised to see Cora in there. And for Masha to make it in there, we get something there. But I don't know if WWE would do that long-term across the companies. But who knows? Crazier things have happened. But again, this was a +1 in the book. So I was like, this was something I enjoyed about this evening after we got 2 weird promo opening segments. I like this faction.
Yeah,
I do. So backstage, see, this is where the cameraman got it right. Because we got 4 people in frame, but it just works. And also, Tyreek and Tyson look intimidating since they're super tall being in the background with Gia and Wes being in the forefront. But we get this backstage segment where Gia's like, Wes, let me ask you a question. And Wes is like, I already know what you're going to ask. Why? Why did I do the things? Why did I interfere, in the match last week against the Rascals? And Wes basically says, is like, I could do whatever I want because I hate the Rascals. And I was like, it makes a lot of sense because as a former Rascal, he can do that. And I was like, the history's there between Wes, Trey, and, Zach, which makes me super excited. And basically, he's like, I'm going to get this NXT championship, but those tag team championships are reserved for these 2, as he points to Tyson. And then Wes basically ends this promo saying that tonight, once I get done with Ace Austin, then I'm going to focus back on the important stuff. And I'm just like, I kind of want Wes to stick around TNA for a little bit because we already complained during our NXT review that NXT is kind of not doing what we need to with Wes. And I would not be mad if Wes wants to be here for a little bit. Like, I'm not going to be mad. As part of this NXT TNA crossover, like, relationship, I would like to see Wes fight some folks here in TNA. Because when we get to his match, I was like, he just feels so natural here. It's so good. Anyways. What'd you think of the promo, Puppo? Anything you like to add for this little segment? Oh, no. Okay. So, while Papa also is trying to recalibrate himself, I will come back to this, and I'm going to move on a little bit. So, hold on. Let me see if this fixes anything. Okay. Now you're live and moving. What is happening?
I have no idea. I was like sitting here and all of a sudden it was doing weird things and then it just kicked me out.
That's really crazy. Okay, so we'll talk behind the scenes because there's 2 of you right now and it's kind of crazy. Okay, so before the internet and your computers and other things started to do wonky things, did you have anything to add to this segment?
No. You said everything that, yeah. I love it. NXT, that I feel so bad for Wes. It's like
he's having a weird trajectory.
Here at TNA, he's doing pretty good. When he goes over back to NXT, he's always losing. And it drives me insane because he needs to do something.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just like, he's having a weird trajectory. And so, hey, but if he gets utilized really well here in this partnership, I'm not going to be mad. But going from one segment that we like to another, yes, this was so dumb, but like in the best way possible. Okay, so Santino is watching something on his phone and giving a chuckle. And then we have, the personal concierge, George Iceman, along with Ash and Heather by Elegance, come in and basically try to make a case that the girls were robbed at Genesis and they want to get a rematch for the Knockouts Tag Team Championships. And Santino's just sitting there the whole entire time. It's just like the things I do for this business. So
I know.
So he's hearing them complain. And then Santino interrupts them by saying, no, you will not be getting a rematch for the Tag Team Championships. But the reason why is because next week, we're going to have a Knockouts Battle Royale to determine the number one contender for the, TNA Knockouts World Championship. So to determine who's going to be the number one contender to face off against Masha. And I'm just sitting here and I'm like, I feel that Cora might actually win because I would not be surprised if she's in it. And this is how we get her to be number one contender. But I love how Ash in this whole entire thing is just like, I'm in the battle royale. Yes. And then Santino tells Heather that she's also in it. So it's like, Ash is like, that's amazing. You know what? I'm happy for you. This is going to be great. You can help me win. And I'm just like, but then we get interrupted. What seemed to be Danny Luna giving a piggyback ride of some sort to Jody Threat when they entered frame, which was hilarious. And so Jody and Danny will also be in this match. And I'm just like, these four are just going to fight and and eliminate each other. There's no way these four are going to win that thing next week. But what I do like about this is that we're continuing this feud between the House of Elegance and Spitfire. And I think they've done a really good job of making me like this feud, especially since these are really the only two Knockouts tag teams we currently have that are established right now. But Will, what did you think of the whole segment with the House of Elegance and then Spitfire coming in? Like, what'd you think?
My whole favorite point or part of this whole thing was and I was like, okay, this is cool. This is a fun little segment. Okay, I'm not too mad at it. And then of course we get the big news about the Knockouts Battle Royale. Excuse me, I had coffee, so I'm kind of the Battle Royale. So I'm really excited about that. And I think you might be right about Cora Jade getting that number one contender. But the other thing about it though is it's like,
I mean, it could be. See, the thing that's kind of like tripping me up a little bit is because the next pay-per-view for TNA isn't until March in Sacrifice. I feel like that would be a little too long for that match to wait to have that match happen. But I also feel that Cora and Masha's encounter shouldn't happen like within the next 2 weeks or so. Like, if we're not going to have it at the pay-per-view, have Cora win, and then let's build up for like a week or like 2 weeks, and then like week 3 or 4 have the match.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The timing is killing me because I'm like, I don't know what the TNA NXT plans are. And because we don't have a pay-per-view, like I don't see it happening on NXT television. And if it's going to happen on TNA, I want there to at least be some build, like some interaction between Masha and Cora, like face to face. Because right now we keep ducking and dodging and Cora's running from Masha at every turn. So I need some sort of confrontation, whether it be verbal or physical, to kind of set that up.
Agreed.
Because right now the feud is playing a giant game of tag. Like,
true. That is very true.
So I'm still excited for the Battle Royale next week, and I cannot wait to see the continuation of the House of Elegance versus Spitfire feud.
Yep.
I want to personally apologize because on Wednesday we talked about Black Excellence, and then TNA and the system went and fucked it up. I'm just kidding. So they messed it up a little bit. Okay, I want to preface by saying this. I actually really like this match. I hate Brian Myers, the character, but the wrestler, he's fantastic. And you know what? The system are doing their job. I'm gonna start off with that. My other positive about this match, I was like, Leon Slater is a star. Like, this kid is amazing, and he never ceases to not amaze me anytime he gets into the ring. So those are the positives. And the third positive is the in-ring, the actual match itself, minus the shenanigans that we'll talk about in a little bit. I thought was really solid. I was like, huh, this ended up being like in my top 2 of the evening because I really like this match. But man, this match made me so mad at the end of it, which it's supposed to, because Leon Slater, like, okay, that finishing sequence to me screamed that he needs to be the one to take out Moose. So Brian Myers gets into, is in the ring. The ref is kind of being distracted with Brian Myers faking he's hurt and everything. And so as Leon Slater kind of gets out of the ring, he ends up in a 3-on-1 situation. And he cleared house. He took out DC. He took out Eddie Edwards. He took out Moose. And then he gets back into the ring only to be done by, Alicia Edwards handing Brian Myers one of the championship rings that the system has. And Brian Myers cold clocks him and then gives him a lariat, like a King Kong lariat from hell, which, by the way, Leon Slater sold beautiful, looking like he got flipped like a pancake in that finishing sequence. And Brian Myers picks up the win over Leon Slater. I was so pressed, more than a panini. I was like, damn, man, Leon Slater can't catch a break. He loses to Frankie, the countdown at Genesis. He's losing to Brian Myers. And then when we get the segment we get a little bit later, I was like, okay, if this builds to him being mentored by a certain tag team champions right now, I'm actually kind of here for it. But Papa, let's talk about this match. So what did you think about Brian Myers versus Leon Slater and the shenanigans that went on?
Well, you know me, I hate the system. So anytime they win, I lose. But this also goes, and I should write a freaking dissertation on it because I always talk about this. You should know that the system's going to cheat. Everyone who fights the system should be in the understanding that they are going to cheat. Therefore, you should always keep your eyes on all of them, including Alicia Edwards. And this is my thing, and I'm going to bring it in here. I think it's sexist. They don't focus on her because she's a woman, and they don't think that she can do anything. And I'm like, have you seen the chaos this woman has caused in a number of scenes? You go, Alicia Edwards, by the way. You're doing your job, and I love it.
Hell yeah.
I love you for it.
Love that for her. Love her.
And it's like every single time that someone fights the system and she's ringside, they focus on the dudes. They never focus on her. I'm like, you got to keep your third eye on that woman because she is pulling something out from underneath that ring, and then she's going to throw it away and be like, I don't know what happened. And she just about gets away with it every single time. So boys, men, gentlemen, pay attention to her because she's the one that's like causing you to lose your matches. Yep. Not the guys. It's her. Keep your eyes on her. So I'm always have this issue that the system's going to cheat. So you should be prepared.
Yeah. Alicia truly, actually, I feel like Alicia is the true leader of the system. Let's be real. Doing everything. But again, I thought the match itself was a lot of fun, but I agree with you. I'm like, y'all know that the system ain't gonna play fair, so we need to be prepared. But damn, I'm like, Brian Myers and Leon Slater, you did that. You did that.
It was a really good. This was my second.
This is my second favorite match of the night, and we'll talk about it when we get to my favorite. But Leon Slater wasn't really having it either after taking this loss to the system and Brian Myers, because then when we go back from commercial, okay, so I want to preface by saying this. I feel like this was the second backstage segment that we could have shaved a couple seconds off, because this was long and it did not need to be, even if it was only like a minute. But so let's set this up, because I love how this picture perfectly does everything. We just keep expanding the frame of the camera. So first, Leon Slater's backstage. Frankie Kazarian comes up, is still trying to recruit Leon Slater. And I actually like that Leon Slater is getting more mad at Frankie for continuing to do the same thing. He's like, look, man, I ain't going to be a young boy. I ain't going to carry that god-awful trophy and everything. And then the system come in and interrupt. They're awkward as hell. Moose is like, hey, don't listen to Frankie. I was like, you know what, Moose? I'm just liking this logic. I'm kind of here for this. Like, just because Moose just completely disrespects Frankie. And I was like, okay, I kind of dig that. But then they made it worse, because Moose is like, you should keep, you know what? We'll make you, you know what? Instead of being mentored by Frankie, you should join the system. You know, you'll have the privilege of carrying our bags. And I was just like, careful now. Let's not have black on black verbal crime here.
But you know what? At least it was one
Lose.
black man to another, and it wasn't like Eddie Edwards going, "You can carry our bags," because that would have been like,
No, that is, yeah, I'll be like, but then Alicia kind of steps up and says, you know what? I'm tired of being the manager of the system. It's like, we could always use the secretary. I was just like, okay, that one wasn't as offensive. I was like, damn, Alicia, just keep twisting the knife.
"Yep."
And so the system keep bagging on Leon Slater. And then our tag team champs of the Hardy Boys come in and basically says that the system are losers and that Leon Slater is a true star, which I agree with. We could have cut it there, but then we got like 30 seconds of weird, awkward silence. The system leaves, and then Frankie Kazarian does all those weird things. I'm over these interrupt promos when the wrestler interrupting is obviously 5 feet away watching. Yes, at least run in or something. Yeah, okay. So we're going to talk about we had a segment that led into a run-in with some other folks, and that is how you do it. But I don't think Leon. So, Professor, I love you. But as we're right now, where we're in the story, I don't think Leon Slater has warrant to do a run-in. But I think if he loses one more time, I would love to see Leon Slater be like, Bucket, I'm gonna punch you in the face next time I see you, and then just roll up backstage and start fighting everybody. But no, I agree with you. This was such a long promo that it did not need to be there. We could have cut it after we got the challenge between, you know, the Hardys and Leon Slater versus the system. But we had the 30 seconds of awkward stuff. We did not need that part. And Frankie's little weird dance at the end as he backs away, too. I was like, what the flip is this? What the hell was that, Frankie?
I don't know what that was. You know, and the other thing, you know, to be quite honest.
Hey, you know what? We're actually really enjoying the Hardys. They're actually doing great in TNA.
Hey, I saw them live at Genesis. And let me tell you, they did not need scooters. They were jumping all over the place. And they were doing things that the camera didn't even catch because the camera was focusing on a lot of the ring stuff and all the stuff up on the ramp that they were doing before they came in. Man, they were doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And I was like, you go, guys.
But
first of all, we could have done without Frankie because part of that. I mean, it was stupid. We already got that. I mean, it could have just not been there. He could have literally, Leon Slater could have literally walked, could have just been walking and then bumped into the system. And they could have been like, and then they could have done that exchange. And then the Hardys come running in and go, you need to back off because this guy is amazing and he's going to take you all down like he did earlier. You know, blah, 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 blah. We didn't even need Frankie Kazarian in this scene. And then it could have cut right then. The minute the Hardys are like, this guy's amazing, so beat it, leave him, done. Yeah, it was too long. God, it was so convoluted. Frankie Kazarian is getting on my damn nerves.
Yeah, like I'm interested to see how long he's gonna hold this trophy for the Call Your Shot. And I'm just like, he's gonna cash that thing in at the most inopportune time. And I know it's gonna make me mad. But I will say the plus of this though is that if we're getting Leon and the Hardys versus the system, and I'm like, I'm actually really here for this. I would love to see the Hardy Boys become the quote unquote mentors for Leon Slater. Amen. I think that would be so much fun.
Yep.
So
agreed.
We shall see what happens with all this. So let us move on to the next bit. This is how you do a run-in properly.
This was great.
So prior to this, we get a backstage segment with Steph DeLander. Love her. And, you know, the Southern psychopath, her actual in real life, like, partner in Mance Warner. Like, I love this weird underlying subtext that there is such a dominatrix kind of thing with Steph. Like, Mance is like puppy dog, like metaphorically on a leash, like listening to Steph and doing everything on her whim. And so they're about to make out backstage. And then the Death Machine himself, Sami Callihan, comes in and attacks, knocks over the cameraman. We fast forward a little bit here where Mance and Sami just fight in the audience. They fight in the ring. There's weapons that are involved. Ultimately, the numbers game catches up with Sami because Steph gets involved. And then it becomes a 2-on-1. And so Steph and Mance kind of take out Sami, and then they proceed to make out in the middle of the ring. 10 out of 10, no notes. I'm just happy to see Steph. I've missed her so much.
I agree. I thought this whole promo was brilliant. This is how you bring
This is how you do it
wrestlers. This is how you bring wrestlers wrestling into an area that's not an actual wrestling event. This is what you do. They don't need to be sitting backstage talking and chitter chatter, flapping their lips. Literally fight. I want you to fight each other. I want you, and I mentioned during our NXT when, back in the day, back in, the 80s when I was going to watch these things with my dad, there was no chitter chatter. And if there was, someone started talking, someone got hit with a 2x4. I mean, it was literally, I came home one time with blood across my shirt because Hacksaw Jim Duggan hit, I don't remember who he hit. I want to say it was Roddy Piper, but it may not have been him, but smacked him with a 2x4 and blood shot across the audience and I got blood on my shirt. It was super cool. But I mean, and because someone started running their mouth and it was like, oh, look. And then they started wrestling. It's like, wow, you mean wrestlers actually wrestle? Yes. This, wherever it is on my screen, this right here was brilliant. There was wrestling, there was fighting, there was like the love story. It was everything, but it was action packed. It wasn't just let me sit backstage and talk to somebody. It was, oh, I loved it. This was like my favorite. This is probably one of my favorites of 2025. Boom, right here.
Nice. I'm excited because now this gives the Digital Media Championship a story, and it seems that Sammy might be coming for it. And I love this. This is great. And you know what? For those of us that watch GCW too, I love seeing Mance here, and I'm excited to see what Mance and Steph do as a power couple in TNA. And I'm here for Sami Callihan being the, existential bane to their existence. I cannot wait. It's going to be fantastic.
Oh, it is.
Once again, I present to you Chapter 2 of What the F Are We Doing with Laredo Kid? So we get this match, Laredo Kid versus the new signee to TNA. So it's official. It's not a temporary contract. It seems that Ali is going to be here for a little bit longer, which has me excited because I love Ali. But we get Laredo Kid versus Mustafa Ali. I actually like this match. But again, why do we have Laredo Kid keep losing? Like, I don't get it. It's so weird. Since he dropped the Digital Media Championship, like, we haven't really done much with Laredo, and it kind of makes me sad. This was weird. Hold on, let me see. Will getting baptized by Jim Duggan with the blood of Roddy Piper immediately makes him cooler than us. Listen, I'm telling you, Professor, I need to get you and Will in a room because I feel like you two would have the most interesting conversation on the planet. And yes, Will, in fact, is cooler than all of us.
Nah, I was in the right place at the right time.
Baptized in blood, yes. But yeah, so I like this match. I really, really did because there were a couple of false finishes where I thought, oh, Laredo Kid might actually win. And then I forgot. I was like, oh, wait, this is Ali's in-ring match return in TNA since, his last stint when he dropped the title and left in July. And so I'm sitting here and I'm just like, oh, wait, no, Ali's going to win. So again, I liked the match. I really thought it was good. But upon a personal note, I'm just like, what are we doing, Laredo Kid? Like, of everybody on that roster right now, to me, he feels like the most directionless. Like, we don't even have anything of where he's going or any feud or nothing. He's used as the specialty and act, and I'm kind of getting annoyed and mad that that's all we're using him for. Because we know Laredo Kid can do the high-flying action. We know he could do the crazy stuff. But I'm sitting here, I'm like, can we get this man like some sort of creative push, a story perhaps, maybe? No, just me. Okay, it's fine. Alrighty, so
no, it's me too.
Go for it. Like,
I've got two issues with this. I actually really like this match. I mean, because I think they're both really great wrestlers, and all, absolutely. Two things. First thing, you've already talked on. What the hell are we doing with Laredo Kid? It's irritating me as well. Right now, he's a prop. That's all he is. He's too good for that, and I don't understand why we're using him like this. I mean, is he just like committed to someone else and they're just so they can't use him?
I'm like, did Laredo Kid do something backstage? Because I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, it literally feels like they're like icing him out, basically. Like, it's like you're gonna lose every single time because you said that horrible thing to somebody backstage. I don't know, but it's starting to getting old real quick. He needs some kind of something. Give him a storyline. Give him a feud. Even if it's between him and Mustafa Ali, What a great feud that would be. Heck yeah. Then my second thing is he needs to change what he's doing. This whole this character
The
is
president
to me, is
character.
getting stale.
So, okay, I know that's been his gimmick since going on the independents, and I'm not there yet with being annoyed.
I'm not
But
annoyed.
but I think I think what Ali is gonna run the problem into is because okay, so I normally don't bring in politics when we talk about wrestling, so I'm not going to try to, but I'm just gonna say this and then we'll move on. His douchey presidential character during,
Yeah.
2024, completely different context with what we're dealing with now in 2025. That's all I'm gonna say. And so I'll move on from this. But I love the presidential candidate character. I love it. It's great. But I'm hoping that we add some dimension to it is what I need. Because now that we've seen what Ali can do with this presidential character, and now that he's back in TNA, I need him to add some sort of dimension to make it, to keep me engaged. Because Ali is a phenomenal wrestler. And I love his character. He turned like this weird presidential candidate character as far as a wrestler goes, and I'm here for it. But now that he's back in TNA for a second run, I need some dimension to add more depth to it. Otherwise, it's not going to hold my attention.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. It's getting stale. It's just getting stale. Again, I'm not tired of it. It doesn't irritate me. I'm not annoyed by it. It's just stale. It's like, I need something different. I mean, if you want to keep the presidential candidate character, that's cool, but you need to do something different with it. Either you change it or you take the current political environment and embrace it. That's all I'm going to say on it.
Yeah.
I mean,
so if it wasn't evident, Mustafa Ali does pick up the win. And then backstage, he cuts a promo talking about how, he's here to change the locker room, to change the environment. I will say this backstage segment is probably my favorite, but that's because it involves one of my favorite peoples right now in TNA, because Ali talks a big game and then he gets confronted by Mike Santana. It's just like, you know what? I ain't here for words. Like, we gonna have a problem here. And of course, Ali, loves Mike Santana. He thinks he's great. And then Mike Santana's like, don't bullshit a bullshitter, bro. Like,
yeah.
I was like, I see through you. It's like, I ain't got time for that. So if you want to truly see who the real leader of TNA is, why don't we fight for it? Like, Mike Santana is like, no more. He's like, I'm not here to talk. I'm here to fight. And I think that's why I like Mike Santana. Going back to what you said earlier, it's like Mike Santana is a man of few words. He's just going, literally, his finisher is called Spin the Block. So he's just going to knock your block off with all of that. I love it. The professor chimes in saying Mustafa Ali deserves the world. I hope that guy gets creative under him at some point. And we agree. So when he was here in 2024 in TNA Professor, like, we loved it. Creative was behind him. And I think he's still there for Ali. But we just need more depth to his character. And what I'm hoping is that with this program that we're setting up between him and Mike Santana, I hope Mike Santana is one of the catalysts to add that dimension to his character. Because Ali is going to have to pull out every trick and every stop in the book in order to take down someone like Mike Santana, who we have seen get knocked down and get back up and kick major ass all the single time. Like, of anybody on that roster in TNA in terms of the men's division, I feel like Mike Santana has probably had the best build since returning to the company in April 2024.
I mean, he is the model of TNA right now.
He is the standard of TNA. Like he was given that title at Genesis from Josh, who was the previous standard of TNA. Yep. Oh, Josh, we're going to talk about you in a minute.
Yeah. But him, and I'm here for a rivalry or a something between Ali and Mike Santana. I
want to see this feud be a battle of ideals, which would be very interesting.
But imagine, though, for a moment, let's go into Fantasyland. Imagine Mike Santana and Mustafa Ali as a tag team.
Yes.
I mean, if they put their differences aside and found a commonality and they joined forces, they would be unstoppable.
Oh my gosh. I love this Fantasyland because I wouldn't be here for a Mike Santana Ali team up.
I mean, truly, they would be unstoppable.
They are both so good. And, outside of his character, I'm with the professor. Ali deserves the world. He's such a genuine, loving dude. And he is also somebody I root for so hard.
Yep.
The professor also loves your Fantasyland. You know, Professor, we're going to get you on here one of these days as a guest. Like, I think TNA will also be a good enjoyment once in a while for you, especially from all the stuff we cover with AEW and WWE. It's crazy. But yeah, I'm excited for this feud that we're setting up with Ali and Santana. Like, give it to me all day. I'm here for it.
Yep. Ditto. God.
Spoiler alert. This did not end the way that I thought it was going to. So next up we got, Eric Young and Josh Alexander teaming up to take on the Northern Armory of Sinner and Saint. I'm going to bring in Andrew's comment a little bit because we had a conversation last night before our GCW review, and I liked what he said. So I'm just let the picture speak for itself because spoiler alert, we get like 6-7 minutes into the match. And then Eric Young just bops Josh Alexander upside the head. Eric Young turns on him. Sinner and Saint, or the Northern the Northern Armory, then proceed to attack Josh for the bell to be rung. And then all three men leave Josh there laying in his own misery. And I'm just like, this was the last thing on my bingo card. I was like, Eric Young, you have some.
And the funny thing about it is I'm over here with TNA going, you've got some building to do. Oh, wait, you didn't build anything. There was no build to this.
This is crazy. I need an explanation.
There was there was no indication. Like, even when, Frankie, he and Frankie were constantly talking about Josh Alexander, constantly talking about. There was never a time in all of that time did we even see an interaction between Eric Young and the Northern Armory. There was never a nod. There was never a random glance. There was nothing. And then he just steps in and they're like, cool.
So, okay. So here are my two biggest issues with this whole turn. First and foremost, do I think Eric Young's going to be great in this? Yes, because Eric Young as a heel also works. We have seen him do it before. Since we started covering TNA here at BC WrestlePod, and we know he could do a great job. I'm excited for it. But here are my two biggest issues with this turn. Number one, it goes to what you were saying, Will, is that we didn't even have a hint, an indication, like even a tease of Eric Young going to the dark side and turning on Josh like that. Because the whole entire time, we have seen Eric Young try to save Josh from himself. And remember, lest we forget, when Josh first turned heel, remember we got that swerve when, him and Eric Young came out and Josh was like, you know what? I saw the error of my ways. Psych! And then attack Eric Young, which then brought out Steve Macklin, which then brought us into this whole feud. That's part number one. Number two, now, going back to what I just said 5 seconds ago, the second issue I have with this is that I feel like what we built between Eric Young and Steve Macklin has kind of got blown to bits by this too. Because now I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, we know Josh is leaving. His contract ends in February. So that's not the shocker here. What baffles me is that you took all this time to have, on top of that, you had Eric Young kind of be the one to help Steve Macklin go through when we had that whole entire 7-minute short film of Macklin's PTSD with him being a veteran and Eric Young being the one to help him get over his trust issues. Now Macklin's going to have even more trust issues with this. Even though Macklin wasn't the one who got turned on, all that work and the story we built with Eric Young and Steve Macklin now got blown to bits by this. So now I'm pretty sure now we're going to get Macklin and Eric Young feuding, which honestly I'm okay with because I think in ring is going to be great. But you blew up a story to do this one. Eric Young better have a good reason and an explanation. I need him to convince me that this was the right decision. Because right now, I'm sitting here scratching my head.
You know what I feel they should have done? I'm going to go back to Will's Fantasyland. What they should have done is that Eric Young and Josh leaves. The Armory is wandering the wilderness, not knowing what to do. Let me help you see the error of your ways, basically. And instead of him turning them, they turn him. And then he becomes a bad guy because of them. That's what they should have done. And that I could get behind that. I could totally get behind that. And
They're the
that's a
ones
hell of a story too.
yes, having, the influence of they're literally called Sinner and Saint.
Yeah.
You literally have a tag team name where you can literally have the angel and the devil or two devils on your shoulder.
Yeah.
But again,
they missed a great opportunity.
but again, Eric Young's gonna need to do some really hard convincing for me when we get this reasoning as to why he turned on Josh.
Yep.
Because TNA, I have lots of questions. And you know what? I feel bad because I'm like, poor Macklin, man. Like he's gonna have trust issues again,
I'm pretty sure Macklin's going to confront him in the next episode,
which I'm here for because Macklin's like, what kind of crap was that, bro? But yeah, we blew up one story for this, and I'm just like, this Eric Young. I please convince me because I want to be in support of this decision. But right now, I'm just scratching my head.
Yep, I don't get it at all.
No. Match of the night for me. This shit
Me
was
too.
fire. Oh my god, this was my favorite match of the whole entire night.
Mine too. This was brilliant.
So literally we get what I call cruiserweights, even though TNA doesn't call them cruiserweights, but we get Ace Austin versus Wesley with Tyreek Igwe and Tyson DuPont, at ringside being his muscle. This was fire. And I love that this got a lot of time too. We got through 2 commercial breaks with this match, like honestly, or at least like the TNA form of a break if you watch it on the TNA Plus app. But yeah, this was my match of the night. It has such good chemistry. I love that Tyson and Tariq got involved, but it didn't like overstay its welcome. And it made sense that, Ace right now is on his own. There's no Chris Bay and all that stuff right now to help out. But now he's found allies in the Rascals because of what West did last week. Phenomenal match. 10 out of 10. Definitely my favorite match of the entire week of what I've seen in wrestling so far. Will, what did you think of Ace versus West?
Everything you said. It was my absolute match of the night. It was so much fun to watch. It was so great. Because I like both of these guys, and these guys they can keep up with each other. That's what's so wonderful about them, is that they're equals, they are like total equals. So it was like, oh gosh, I was just like, oh, and I freaking loved it. It was exciting. It was fun. This version of Wes Lee is super cool. I like him a lot. He went away, when he left and he came back and he sort of got crushed. And then he just sort of took that, what? Screw this. I'm doing my thing. And whether you like it or not that's your problem, not mine. And now he's got his entourage and who I love also. And I just love this Wes. I've loved Wes from day one. So he can do no wrong for me. And then, of course, I love Ace Austin as a solo fighter. I can't wait for ABC to be reunited, but as a solo fighter, he is so good. Watching him at Genesis, man, I was like, God, watching you on TV does no justice.
Of how, lest we forget too, Ace Austin is like the under 25 club. Like he's still, I could say this because I'm in my 30s, but like he's still a baby compared to all the other wrestlers we see. Him and Chris Bay are still fairly young. And I'm just like, the amount of talent that Ace Austin has, I was like, I'm happy that TNA is pushing him as a single star right now. It's unfortunate, like we talked about before, due to circumstance. It wasn't by choice that, he's now in a solo run. But this solo run so far is reminding me of like, there's a reason why I loved it when Ace Austin was X Division champion like 2-3 years ago in TNA. Like, he's so good. This match was fantastic. 10 no notes. I was like, I didn't even take notes because I was enthralled. I was like, the whole entire time, like, my pen was down. I was like, oh, I should be taking notes. I couldn't because I didn't want to look away because I was afraid to miss something.
Exactly. They're all babies compared to, me.
That's also fair. Yes, go watch this match, Professor. Honestly, like sending you recommendations. Like every time we talk, me and Will do this review, I'm going to send you be like, this is a match in other companies you should watch. In fact, I think I might actually do that for our social medias. It's like, here's what you missed this week in wrestling, and here's the matches that we recommend if you want to see bangers.
Yeah, this one was so good.
Oh, absolutely.
So good.
So before I move on to the next part, I do want to backtrack a little bit because I did say I wanted to bring up Andrew's point, and I agree with him. So GCW correspondent and former host of the TNA reviews here at BC WrestlePod. I agree with Andrew that the one positive of the whole turn is the fact that he's glad that Sinner and Saint aren't going to be thrown out and kind of discarded, which I'm glad because I was worried with Josh leaving. I was like, oh boy, what's going to happen to the Northern Armory? So while I'm still questioning Eric Young's turn and why he's in this position, I'm at least happy that Sinner and Saint will still get to be featured on TNA television because I think they deserve it. I think they're a really good tag team. So I agree with Andrew. All right, now let's move forward. Hi, Joe. Him in his satin shirt. Love him. I also love seeing that championship around your arm, my dude. Well deserved. Basically, what we set this up is we're getting a concert next week. And if it's anything like the last one that Joe Hendry did, I'm here for it. It's going to be crazy. I'm interested to see who he going to call out and what kind of shenanigans go down. But I'm here for the concert next week. Yes, this picture explains it all.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so like, I actually didn't hate this match. I thought I was going to hate it. I actually enjoyed this match. Nick Nemeth is still awesome. You know, Casey Navarro and AJ Francis first class. Their in-ring never bothers me because I think it's great. Casey always does an excellent job. I love Casey's wrestling. I think he's fantastic. And even though I don't really dig his character, I think TNA has something with AJ Francis because really we don't have any outside of Moose. Like we don't really have any like really top heels per se. So AJ Francis and Casey Navarro could be utilized like that. I love the storytelling in this match because Nick Nemeth did all the work and Ryan Nemeth comes in for the steal and the win. And so like he celebrates this goofy ass face right here from Ryan Nemeth. Like he acted like he won the World Series or a championship. So Nick did all the work. Ryan tagged himself in to pick up the Nemeth brothers wins. So before I get into the final part of what we learned on social media from this match, Will, what did you think of our main event?
I liked it. I didn't dislike it. This is where I was like, something's gonna happen between these two, is because, you know, Ryan basically stole the pin from Nick. And Nick was very much, and he did this thing, and even though he was like smiling, I see it. I see the cracks happening. So, and if we got a brother versus brother thing, I would love this.
Here's hoping the match is better than Jimmy and Jay because we were all disappointed at WrestleMania last year.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
It was the worst match of 2024 for a lot of our folks. It was so disappointing. Ryan, if this leads to Nick kind of turning a little bit more heel by, you know, getting annoyed with his brother, I'm here for it. Like for reals. So that technically concludes our review for TNA, but really quickly, we got 2 matches announced for next week, thanks to social media. Match next week on TNA as Ryan and Nick Nemeth take on our NXT champions, Frack. So Nathan Frazier and Axiom will be back in the TNA's, you know, ring next week. I'm actually really excited for that match. I think on paper it's going to be really good because we know Fraxium can go. Nick and Ryan will be an interesting dynamic against those two. And then the other match that I'm kind of looking forward to that was announced is because when Mike Santana and Mustafa Ali had their backstage promo, Ali weaseled his way out of a match and he said, you know what? I have somebody who is always ready. So let me see if they can satiate your need to fight Mike Santana. So we're getting Mike Santana versus Matt Cardona next week too. So I'm excited because I know Matt can wrestle. And I love him being here, especially since, you know, his GCW folks, Steph DeLander and Mance Warner are here in TNA. I love this. That's all I need.
Yeah, right.
Like, I was like, yes, Mike Santana is about to fight some stuff. Oh, by the way, Professor, if you are still here, I am more than happy to give you login information. Now that we're at the end of January, I'm going to say this here because technically today is the last day of January. There has been a lot of incredible wrestling throughout the whole entire month of January, which is crazy because it's only been the first 31 days and wrestling has been amazing. But of everything I watched from the weekly shows to the pay-per-views in the month of January, Mike Santana gets the January award for best match of the month for January 2025 because his I Quit match versus Josh Alexander is my favorite match of the entire month of everything that I have watched so far. So that is a match that I also recommend to you, and I will give you my login information if you want to watch that match because the I Quit match between Josh Alexander and Mike Santana was amazing. Sorry, I had to get that off my chest. But yeah, that concludes our show. Will, you know, again, I have a lot of questions still. but there were some positive things, which I really appreciated because I feel like it was a good balance of some good things and some questionable things. It wasn't
Mhm.
like Dynamite this past week where I was like, why is this so boring? It's crazy out here. But that is going to be it for us here at the Takedown Troop. So we got to go. But yeah, we'll talk, Professor. I'm gonna send you a text after this. So that is going to be it for us here at the Takedown Troop. We will be back next week for okay. As of right now, we will be back next Friday for another TNA review. That is depending on if my conversations with Andrew, because there's a Defy Wrestling event on Friday. So I don't know if we're going to do a watch along for that or not, but I'll talk to Andrew and see if that's doable. But something will be happening Friday. So from myself and the rest of the BC WrestlePod family, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay iconic, and more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. We'll catch you on the flip side. Yes, Steve. Also, Masha and GCW and House of Glory for Santana. I also recommend those independent matches, but stay iconic. And remember, you always deserve to finish your story. So we'll catch you on the flip side.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another Vibe Tribe production. What's gonna happen next time? Well, you're gonna have to tune in to find out. But until then, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and as always, make sure that you keep the good times rolling. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.